Hey, 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 I'm a weird alien guy, and I'm here to tell you to listen to We Don't Know What to Watch, the two podcasts where humans may or may not watch random movies on streaming services based on a cool random button that they found on the internet. With me is definitely human male Kyle Mulford, and I am also definitely human male Noah Saturn. How's it going, Kyle?
Mammy's little baby loves watching movies. Mammy's little baby. I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. What did we watch this week?
To be honest, I'm not sure. It's a little bit of everything from the horror section in the 70s.
We got some weird visuals. We got some creepy kids. We got some weird music choices. We've got
We watched The Visitor from 19. It was a Italian movie from 1979, released in the U.S. in 1980, like in the summer of 1980, I think. And this movie was, I guess, let's get right into this. What this movie is. We got the director Giulio Paradisi, and he directed this as Michael J. Paradise.
that's common
I
for Italian directors,
I love it.
especially in this era.
He has only directed 5 films, but he's also acted in stuff. The only notable things that I actually recognize because they were all Italian, and I don't watch a lot of Italian films. It's just a blind spot. Was he acted in La Dolce Vita and Fellini's 8.5.
Interesting. So he's been around.
Yeah, and speaking of been around, I don't know how he got this cast, and I just got to say who's in this cast. We have John Huston, legendary director John Huston, in this 1970s weird, low budget mashup horror film. And
Maybe he
then
was bored.
and then there was a small cameo by Sam Peckinpah, another director. He must have been friends with these other directors or something. And
Something. I
but
forget. John Huston was still making movies, I think, into the 80s.
oh yeah, he was. So I think he was still making good movies into the 80s. So I don't think he like went downhill or nothing. I can't think of what he had actually done at that point, but I'm sure. Yeah, there must have been some sort of bet they lost, or maybe they were friends, or maybe this guy was just calling a favor or something.
Maybe, who knows?
The movie was distributed by, what is it, American International Pictures or something like that? Is it? They had like 5 different names throughout their decades of existence. It started out in like '54, and it started with low budget films, a lot of Roger Corman stuff. I think they did a lot of the Roger Corman, Edgar Allan Poe stuff in the '60s, which I actually talked about The Raven on last week's What You Watching. And then they got into the '70s and started getting into the blaxploitation. I believe American International Pictures or American Pictures International. Again, I can't remember exactly what it's called.
Hmm.
They did stuff like Coffee and a lot of the big blaxploitation. I think they did Blackula. So some of the bigger blaxploitation movies that they
Yeah,
brought.
and remember, Blackula may seem corny by today's standards, but it was a big hit.
The Visitor.
Well, Blackula.
Oh, Blackula. No, yeah, the blaxploitation stuff in the '70s was a big thing. So
Don't forget Shaft, which has one of the best soundtracks ever.
yeah, and they borrowed it for this movie, right?
I wish Shaft would show up.
I know, right? Uh, so on top of John Huston and Sam Peckinpah, the two directors, we also have Lance Henriksen, who you can find in a lot of genre films like Pumpkinhead.
And Alien, the Bishop, of course.
Yes, and then we've also got Glenn Ford, Superman's dad from the
Yeah,
1970, 78 Superman,
yep, 78, so right
78.
around this time period.
So that seeing Pa Kent as a detective and Shelley Winters playing a maid.
And she's definitely another actor who had a very long career. She was acting from even like in the fifth or even like the early 50s. So she's very long career. She's always good at playing sort of that character who's just you kind of don't like, and it seems like she dies halfway through in some of her movies.
Well, and I wonder if like that was just because she's someone you don't like, because I the little girl in this movie, played by Katie Collins, or no, the girl's name is Katie Collins, was played by Paige Connor, and she had been in like one movie, and actually another tie-in to a movie I talked about last week, Little Darlings. She's credited as a girl in a t-shirt.
All right, girl in a t-shirt.
But this was one of her only big roles. She was a child actor, and this was her big role. And I thought she was great in it. I don't know what was up with the weird, like, Southern accent. And I think that, I watched a couple interviews with her, actually,
Oh
and
yeah.
as an adult, and she even talked about that, how she had like speech coaches trying to get rid of the accent and all that. But she ended up going on as an adult to become an Atlanta. This was filmed in Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
And she became an Atlanta Falcons cheerleader. And
Hmm.
now then she got into makeup and stuff. And now she owns a place called the Luxury Lash Lounge. So,
That's awesome. Still going, good stuff. Good to
uh,
know she's still around.
and watching the interviews, she just seems like the nicest lady. So, but there is a scene. I'll get to that. Let's talk about this movie itself.
Yeah, so I guess I'll handle a basic plot. This is a very loose plot. There's a little girl with like carry powers, as in telekinetic and stuff, and then an alien from outer space comes and he wants to help, I guess, take her away and make sure she stays safe, and then she avoids, like these evil cultists who want like her mom to have another baby, and the baby can turn and be like the Omen or something, be like the son of Satan or whatever.
Well, here's the really disturbing part of it is that the girl is like Satan's like descendant, and they want to have the mom have another kid and have it be a boy, and then have that boy and the girl would be half siblings get together and have a baby, which would be like, a Satan child.
Well, it was made in the South, so you know.
So this is the most bizarre thing, because I feel like they kind of went, what is popular in horror? Because like you said, they had a little bit of Carrie in there, a little bit of The Omen. They had a little bit of Rosemary's Baby. They had a little bit of The Birds in there, because for some reason
There were birds.
there were birds attacking people. And what else did you have in this movie? It was just, and there was, like you said, it's all these it's kind of like all these religious type horror movies like Rosemary's Baby and The Omen and all this stuff. Only
A little
they
exorcist vibe from it too.
what was that?
A little exorcist vibe.
Yeah, a little bit. But then with all that religious iconography, you actually take it and make it so that like Yahweh and Satine are actually like space aliens, and Satine, before he died, put his seed into many women on Earth, and their descendants keep coming down the pike. And Franco Nero, we haven't mentioned him. Franco Nero, Jesus, it sends out John Huston's character, Jersey Kolsowicz, to get these kids, before they become evil.
Okay, so he's like, I can't tell if he's trying to be more like Professor Charles Xavier or Magneto. I don't know.
I don't know, because the other thing is did this director have like, an in with the Atlanta Falcons or something? Because that's the basketball team, right? The Falcons,
Yeah, I don't know.
or whatever, or
Maybe
is
it's
that the football team?
I don't know nothing.
But the basketball team, because this was filmed in Atlanta, and there's a scene at the beginning. Lance Henriksen. Okay, to set it up, you got a woman played by Joanne Nail. I don't really know who she is or what else she's been in, but she plays the mom of Katie, and Lance Henriksen is trying to get with her, and then he owns the NBA team in Atlanta, and he answers to who is it? Ferrer. What's his name?
I don't know.
Abel Ferrer, the actor.
Maybe.
He answers to him because there's like this Satanist cult that he belongs to, and then he also owns the basketball team. And so at the beginning, we get like him at a basketball game, and you have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as himself.
Yeah, that was weird. He just happened to be in it playing basketball. That was
And you get like this, like 10 minutes of this game going back and forth, and then like it's coming down to like the last shot, and you see little Katie Collins use her telekinetic powers to blow up the basket, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar falls to the ground without making the basket, and it's just like, what is going on? And then you find out that Lance Henriksen is actually planted in as the boyfriend to try and get her pregnant to have a male baby, and that's what's happening throughout the movie.
See, I just assumed it was like NBA Jam, where like he slam dunked it so hard that like it broke.
Oh my, he's on fire.
Exactly. See, that must have been it.
So after the basketball game, we get to the whole beginning part. This movie seems so like just segmented. It's like, oh, here's a story and here's another story. Like what? Because the beginning is there's a birthday party for Katie,
Oh, this
and
part's amazing.
and the aunt buys this little porcelain bird thing that talks, and I don't know why,
And
but
then she opens another present and it's a gun.
yeah, and nobody can
Just
figure out
a
where the
gun.
gun came from.
And then she takes the gun and she runs around with it, pointing it at people. She goes, "Hey, mom, look at this." And then she accidentally shoots her mom in the back, crippling her.
She she throws the gun on the coffee table and it goes off and shoots the mom.
I just started laughing.
Well, it's so jarring. It's funny, actually. I kind of
Like,
laughed the first time too.
like a gun?
But then this turns into a police investigation because they're like, where did the gun come from? Who gave her the gun? And nobody knows because the package was wrapped and it was in the wrapping that the aunt had given. And she's like, I don't know. I gave her this little bird. Like, what? And so then it goes into like these interrogation scenes with Glenn Ford as the detective, and he's interviewing all the people at the party and everything like that. And then he's trying to figure out how did this package get wrapped in the same paper? How did someone open it and put a gun in there and then rewrap it so perfectly? And they're trying to figure out where this bird went. So he's going and breaking into the house too.
Oh boy.
And he finds the bird. He finds the bird in a plant or something like that. And then we also got to mention that Katie owns a bird that she
Yeah,
like
she also
sticks
owns a
after
bird,
people.
like a falcon or something.
It's like, sick 'em, bird.
Get him.
Go get him, Tweety.
Exactly.
But she actually sicks this one on him because he finds the bird as evidence, and he's taking it back to the station. And then all of a sudden, the bird flies in through his car window while he's on the interstate. And sorry, I lost my headset there. And
That bird he was ready to kill.
yeah, it's like pecking his eyes out, and then he rolls through a fence and down a hill, and his car blows up.
That was my favorite part. Like he just gets blown up by a bird.
And it's like this is like the first 20 minutes of the movie, and then the detective is gone, and then it's like it almost like is the whole plot line of this investigation just disappears. Like no other cop comes into this.
Yeah,
He's
and that's
dead.
because he died in such a weird way. That just kind of reminded me of The Omen and the fact that people die in weird ways. Like that one priest from The Omen like happens to be walking by and like a sheet of like plate glass and like cuts off his head or something weird like that.
Yeah, and it's just it was so bizarre. And because then after this whole thing where he dies, then we have this whole scene in an ice skating rink because you have Jersey John Huston coming down from outer space or wherever their little Franco Nero Jesus cult is from. and and he sees her and he's coming down the down this long staircase, which I actually read somewhere that it's actually the world's longest escalator. So they had to turn it off for filming so he could walk down this long escalator.
But by
But
the end, it's like,
but you have Katie ice skating and no parents around. She's just ice skating and he's watching her and she sees him watching her and they haven't been introduced to each other yet, and yet she just stares at him and starts making people fall over on the ice.
Nice.
And then when Jersey John Huston, that's just his new name now, Jersey John Huston, when he starts coming down the stairs, as soon as you get a close up of him, you got dun 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 dun. It's just
Yeah, so a musical sting like that happens it seems like every time he shows up.
every time.
Yeah, it seems like he shows up like every 10, 20 minutes or whatever. And it's just like then that happens and I just feel like, all right, so when is Bruce Lee gonna show up or when is Shaft gonna show up? That's all I could think of.
And the thing is I love that theme music, but it does not fit in the rest of the movie because the rest
Oh,
of the
not
movie
at all, not at all.
you don't even notice the score the rest of the movie because it's so seamless. It's just background noise, which is fine. That's a perfectly acceptable score. But then every time he comes on, it just all of a sudden it just like it's also louder too. It's just dun dun
Yeah.
dun 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 dun. I'm
Yeah, then it feels like either that or like a 70s cop show is about to start, which would also be awesome.
Oh, that's the other thing is I'm not doing it justice because it is totally. You could play that for anybody and they'll go, "Yeah, that was written in the '70s."
Yeah.
but
It was
uh,
like Starsky and Hutch or whatever was about to start.
Starsky and Hutch died in that car crash with the bird.
I believe it.
So we have all this, and that's our introduction to Jersey John Huston on Earth. We did see him with Franco Jesus, and he's like, and Franco Jesus is like, "We got another one." Yes, her name is Katie Collins. It's her 8th birthday soon. So I mean, maybe they turn
But
evil on their
it's
8th birthday.
like Franco Dero is like Cerebro or something, where like he knows where everything is.
No,
Like
Jersey
mutants.
knew where she
Okay,
was.
so Jersey John is the new Professor X because he can find mutants or whatever.
He's just the living, breathing Cerebro.
I believe it.
Her name is Katie Collins. She'll be 8 years old next Tuesday.
Oh, Cerebro, Magneto.
Why do you know so much about this 8-year-old?
Cause
so, we have Lance Henriksen taking the mom out to dinner or something, and the doorbell rings and it's Jersey John, and he's like, "I'm the babysitter," and they're all like, "This old dude's the babysitter."
yeah, from the agency.
So he kind of like he babysits Katie and kind of talks to her and says something about like, "Oh, you've got powers and all this stuff, right?" And he just kind of like I think at one point she says something about, "Are you gonna hurt me?" And he said something about, "No, I'm just gonna take you away," or something like that. So
And then she'll be enrolled in Professor Charles Xavier's School for Gifted Children. I'm sorry, I got the X-Men on my brain.
yeah, well, they're gonna have a whole school of devil children because
And it,
he said he wants to take Katie away when his friends come because when he came down, he set up shop on the roof of a building
yeah,
and like he's
like
got
a
like
weird
runway
hallway.
lights and oh, that's the other thing is this has a little bit of Close Encounters of the Third Kind with like the lights on the roof of the building flashing on there and everything. He's got his runway lights for his Jesus and pals to come in later.
Yeah, Jesus and pals. It's. I was having trouble sticking with this movie. I just couldn't get into it.
Yeah, it's so like I said, it's all over the place because it's like that whole investigation scene at the beginning. I'm going like, why did we even need that? Because once the detective died, then we never hear anything about the investigation again, and then it turns
Yeah, it's just
into
dropped.
okay, now it's Jersey John trying to get Katie and take her away, and then you also
Whatever.
still have Lance Henriksen trying to get with the mom to make a Satan baby. And Katie actually like wants the baby brother to like there's that weird
Mom.
scene with her and her mom in the bed.
It's like, Mom, you should have another baby.
Yeah, she's like her her mom is on the phone with Lance Henriksen and she's like just like leaning over her mom, whispering in her ear, going, "You and Lance should get." His name's not Lance in this movie. "You and Raymond should get married, and you can make love and have and give me a baby brother."
Yeah,
It's
as
like
you do.
this is the weirdest conversation between a mother and daughter. And I mean, it's not weird for a kid to want a baby brother, but the
Yeah,
creepy way she says it to her mother, you should marry Ray, and then you guys can get together and make love
yeah.
and have a baby brother for me. It's just
I
so,
assume it's just like everybody loves Raymond. That's how it started.
yeah. Everybody loves Raymond. But at some point they get a maid also played by Shelley Winters, and she comes in and she basically tells the mom, "I don't like your daughter."
Yeah, she's mean. She's poorly behaved. She's abusive.
She's a terrible kid. At one
Yep.
point, there's a scene later in the movie where she actually has a confrontation with Katie, and she's like, "You're an awful kid." And she slaps her in the face. Well, this is one of the stories I got like out of listening to a couple interviews. Was the lady who played Katie, Paige Connor? She said that she actually did not like Shelley Winters because when they were rehearsing for that scene, she was actually slapping her. And she said, I don't know if she was joking or if she was just into the scene, but Shelley Winters told me, I like scenes where I get to hit kids.
That's creepy.
I was like, oh my God, that's what? But apparently, I was listening to an interview with Lance Henriksen too, and he said something about, she was very difficult to work with and all this
Hmm.
stuff. So, but eventually we get to a point where the Satan Club, Mel Ferrer, that's the actor's name, led by Mel Ferrer, I believe. They don't like that Lance is not, getting the job done. If you know
Come
what I
on, get
mean.
with the baby making.
Get with the baby making. So they're like, "You're out, dude. We're done with you. We'll do this another way." And so they make her car stall, and then they have this whole alien abduction scene where it's like it's not really aliens; it's a semi parked in front, but the lights in there, and then the way they're dressed was this. It really felt like an alien abduction, and they pull her into the semi, drug her, and then impregnate her and then put her back in her car and just leave her there. And she had called a tow truck before and said where she was. And when the tow truck pulls up, we get these two black characters in the truck, and they're like the comic relief in the movie because they're like, "You go over there. I don't know what's going on with it. That's weird."
I'm not going over there. You go over there.
Because there's a little girl in the back seat and then a mom passed out at the steering wheel. They're like, I'll follow you up to the car. you go ahead. So she gets impregnated by the Satan Club, and Satan are us.
There you go.
And then she finds out she's pregnant, and she goes to her ex-husband. This was really weird. When you notice when she walked into the hospital, I was so confused because she walked up, she goes, "Hey, I want to see the doctor." And there's just people everywhere in the lobby, and they're like, "Okay, sure." I'm like, how'd you just get in past all these people? What?
I thought maybe it was supposed to be like a free clinic or something, but I don't know what it was.
Yeah, well, it turns out that it's her ex-husband is a doctor. So she goes to him for an abortion. So yeah, so we get her ex-husband who gives her an abortion, and he's played by Sam Peckinpah. And this was another one that was I actually listened to a little bit of an interview with I dug up a few interviews online with this, and Joanne Nail was in one of the interviews, and she was talking about working with Sam Peckinpah, and she's like, I thought that like working with this esteemed director who's always directing scenes, and as a director you want your actors to know the lines and be prepared and all this stuff, and they're like, okay, working with a director as an actor, I thought this would be great. And no, he was unprepared. He didn't know his lines. He only filmed for like a day, and since he forgot his lines in some parts, there's the scene where they're in the room talking to each other, and it's kind of dark in there, so they had somebody else ADR, and they popped
Nice.
that over him.
Do what you got to do, I guess.
Because he couldn't remember his lines for like two scenes.
That's
So
funny.
yeah, but The other funny story I heard was from, I think it was Lance Henriksen was talking about working with John Huston, and he's like, I did a scene with him, and Huston was kind of giving me tips or whatever on something, and then when we got to the scene, John Huston says his line, and I just stood there, and Houston's like, oh, like what's going on, and all this. He goes, I'm being directed by like the legendary John Huston. I just kind of froze up there.
Nice.
So Lance Henriksen seems like a super cool, chill dude when you listen to him in an interview, and like he really, he's even been quoted as saying this was a turkey of a film. It was just kind of like, I think people just did it for the money, and it was
Sometimes you need a paycheck,
yeah, but he also, when you listen to him, it's like he really respects where he came from, and he respects the stuff that he did. And even if he thinks it's a turkey of a film, he's glad that he did these things, and he realizes, you've got good movies, you've got bad movies, and you got to, just go with everything you got, and put your work into it, So, but yeah, so anyway, she gets her abortion, and then we get this whole. Katie goes after John Huston and finds him in an abandoned building. He goes into a vendor, and it seems like they know each other. And she drops a ladder with her mind on the vendor.
Oh, man.
And then follows Huston into a hall of mirrors, and she starts shattering the mirrors with her mind to try and find him. And then you get Barbara, the mom, coming home, and she gets attacked by the bird. And then Katie gets back home somehow, and
I was really hoping that the chase scene would end up in like a scanner scenario.
Yeah, where she just blew up Jersey John's head.
That'd be amazing.
And then it's like the end, Satan wins.
Yep.
Or
Hail
Satine.
Satan.
I'm sorry, Satine.
Saltine, yeah.
It's the Satine Club.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like a satin Satan?
They wear really nice satins.
Yeah. And worship Satan. It's the Satine Club.
Makes perfect sense to me.
So Katie gets back home. I don't even remember how this even happens. Katie ends up back home, trying to kill her mom, and Lance is helping her. Like they strangle her on her chairlift on the stairs, and then eventually Katie plows her through an aquarium. And then you find out that Huston, Jersey John, and Shelley Winters, the maid, were actually working together. They're both trying to work together. Only she's stuck on Earth. So like she's one of the Earth agents.
I was honestly hoping that it would end up in like a Mac and Me scenario where like she just pushes her down and like she goes down like a cliff and then falls into the water, like in Mac and Me.
Oh, and then the clip that Paul Rudd shows to Conan O'Brien every time he gets on the show.
Yeah, that same clip. Yeah, that same one. That's what I was talking about.
No, well, I mean, it's kind of, because instead of going into the like pond, she goes into the aquarium water.
I was hoping it ended in the pond.
It was a little pond.
Something.
Anyway, we get the people taking Katie away. I have on my notes, and they monitor her. Jersey John goes and strings up lights on the rooftop, and his beacon, and then that's when Katie goes back and beats up her mom. And then Raymond kills her with a piano wire. And then you get this whole bird thing where John Huston like uses his mind to bring in a bunch of birds, and they're just like circling her. And the effects were about as good as the Alfred Hitchcock birds.
Yeah, so not bad.
Well, actually, maybe they were in between Alfred Hitchcock's birds and Birdemic. And this was another one where the Paige Connor, who played Katie, she said that she had trouble not laughing because she's being attacked by like these really fake birds just hanging around, and they all looked like really plastic and fake, and so she couldn't get through the scene without laughing.
Nice.
But the whole thing, like these birds just flood the house, and they attack Katie, they kill Raymond, and then the birds go and kill the whole cult, the whole Satine cult, and then you have Jersey John gets his girl and goes back, and Franco Jesus has this batch of bald children, and you come to find out that what was that?
So what was that about, the bald kids? I don't get it.
Well, the thing is I'm wondering if it's all Satan children because
Maybe that they've saved or whatever.
yeah, because that's what Jersey John was trying to do. He says, "I don't want to hurt you. I want to save you."
Yeah,
And
so it
then
really is the X-Men.
yeah, exactly. So he takes her back and shaves her head and has her join the Franco Jesus cult instead of the Satine cult.
So if she's the young one, does that make her like the Kitty Pryde or the Jubilee of the group, or
I think so.
makes
So,
sense?
and technically maybe all of those are her relatives because they were all like spawns of Satine.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that's what all the kids were because, and that's the only, and the weird thing is that's the only people you have up in this weird, like Franco Jesus, like dimension because Shelley Winters even says something about John to Jersey John about going, I want to go with you. And he's like, nope, only kids can come with me. And you've got to stay here on Earth. I'm like, what is this weird, like Jersey John and Franco Jesus is like just gathering a bunch of Satan children and shaving them bald and having them join their cult. This is
I
weird.
assume they're gonna all work together to take over the world.
I think so. You know what's going to happen though is it's going to turn out that all the Satine children. The sequel is that they've gathered them all up and now they're like, ha ha ha, we just pretending that we have changed, turned over a new leaf.
Exactly.
So yeah, this movie is so cuckoo.
Yeah, it's almost like it just feels like it never really completed a thought. It was just kind of like a bunch of half thoughts thrown together in a blender.
Yeah, like I said, it's take everything you've seen in 70s horror and kind of shake it up and throw it out on the screen and you get The Visitor.
Yeah, I guess so. Would you recommend this movie?
Oddly enough, I would because it's such an oddity. And is it a good movie? I don't know if I can say it is, but there's something about just the bizarreness of it that intrigued me and just who they got in the cast. It's almost something that you just have to see once, just and you're just going to watch it going, this is really a movie. This is something I'm actually watching. What is this? uh, for people who really enjoy like 70s cult movies, I would recommend this weird little oddity.
I would not. Just not for me. Couldn't really get into it. Thought it was kind of dull after times. Was really thrown off by the soundtrack every time it kicked in for that one theme. It's
Yeah,
like we have the rights to this theme and we're gonna use it, damn it.
the pacing, I will admit, was a little bit. There were times when I was like, you can pick this up. Like the basketball game, I'm like, this did not need to go on for this long. And the ice skating rink kind of went on a little long. It was almost like it was filler because it's not a long movie.
Yeah, it's only like it's under 2 hours, so
Yeah, so but I think that some of it could have been cut. Like I said, I'm not going to recommend this for just anybody, but if you are interested in weird cult films and like just a mashup of everything that came out of the 70s in the horror genre,
mm,
it's something that is something to behold.
it's something for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah, I will definitely say I will not recommend it if you're expecting like a really great movie, but if it sounds really bizarre and you're just curious and you're okay with watching some weird ass shit, then go ahead and give it a try. And the weird thing is also is I came across that actually the US release in 1980, it was edited differently. So there was two different edits, the foreign version and then the American version. And
Huh.
the I think the US version was cut down a little bit. And then in 2010, it was released on DVD by a company called Code Red. And that was the
Okay.
first time that it had been shown in the US in its uncut form. And
Weird.
apparently, the original US version was even more confusing than this version.
Okay, so this is sort of the closer to the
Yeah.
original cut that we watched.
Yeah, because if you noticed at the beginning, it said Draft House Films.
Okay, yeah. So
That was
Alamo.
actually it was acquired in 2013 by Draft House and remastered. So, and I think that they remastered the uncut version.
Mm-hmm.
So, which I love that Draft House finds stuff like this, and because even if it's not your cup of tea, it's something that should be known about. Like there are certain movies, it's just like, don't let them disappear. But
Yeah,
I mean, even if you don't want to watch it, someone should be preserving this stuff. So,
agreed.
but yeah, I love that Draft House does that kind of thing. So, but I think in general, yeah, I looked at Rotten Tomatoes. It was 78% with 18 critics and only 43% with 442 users. So less than 50% of people found this
Mm-hmm.
worthwhile. But it's an interesting film.
It's certainly something.
But anyway, let's go on to finding something to recommend with it. What would you put as your double feature with this? Or as if you did not like this movie, what would you watch instead?
I don't know. This one's a tough one for me. I guess since I was just gonna say if you want like the telekinesis kid thing, I was just gonna go with the 1976 version of Carrie, directed by Brian De Palma, starring Sissy Spacek.
I mean, that is a good choice for us. And the thing is there's so many choices you could have with this.
Yeah, and it's got evil John Travolta, so there's that.
Well, there's that. Um, I would, yeah, that going the telekinetic route, that really was a big part of this movie. And I went with the other route, which one of the other big things about this was they were trying to make a devil baby with the mom, and they never really succeeded. So I'm going to go with 1968, Rosemary's Baby, where they succeeded in making the devil baby.
I suppose.
And that is on Amazon Prime, actually. I ended up watching that. And here's the thing, I watched Rosemary's Baby, and yeah, I know it was Roman Polanski, and he's a
Yeah.
bad man, but it's a good movie. And the thing is, I realized as I watched it, I had only seen bits and pieces of it. I had never seen that all the way through. And it's really good because it's this weird gaslighting movie where like they keep making her think she's crazy
Yeah.
when she thinks that like it's this Satan cult in there too, and they're all like, no, you're crazy, and they make her think she's crazy when she's really not. And I thought it was a really good movie.
It's just downright unsettling, but yeah, it is well made. I do have to agree with that.
And the end is very, like, the way it's shot is very powerful because it's one of those things where oh, I can't remember what the effect is called, where you swear that you remember seeing something in a movie that
The
actually.
Mandela effect.
Yeah, where this is one of those movies where I think there are people that like will swear to you that they remember seeing the baby at the end, and they never show the baby because it was like so tense that like you really remember seeing that baby, and it's like,
Yeah.
but no, they never actually show the baby at the end. And that was the other thing about it is with The Visitor, one of the things that I think was a theme in it was, is it in your nature or your nurture? It was a nature versus nurture because these were Satan's biological children. Does
Hmm.
that mean they're going to be evil, or can they take these kids and turn them around and save them? Because they didn't kill these kids, they didn't kill Satan's kids. They took them in to try and save them. And then
Yeah, but that doesn't really seem to be explored. It's just kind of like, oh, it just kind of happens.
yeah, and that's the thing is like it really wasn't. Whereas like with Rosemary's Baby, there was kind of a not the same kind of thing, but like at the end, there's this whole part of, does motherly instincts trump the fact that this was Satan's baby? Like, and I don't know how much you remember the end, and it was I thought the ending was very interesting because it dives into that aspect of, she knows this is like the spawn of Satan, but it was her kid, like, and it's kind of like almost like, which actually quite literally, if someone gets raped and they end up having the kid, you have that resentment, but you love the kid, it's
I suppose.
so this weird dichotomy where it's like, you know what they are, but they're also your kid. So it's
Hmm.
like, where do you go with that? Yeah, I found after ending up watching Rosemary's Baby for the first time that I really enjoyed the movie. So that is my recommendation.
All right.
So anyway, what are we on to next?
Let's see. I actually got it up right here, so I've got all genres. Or do you want to pick a genre this time?
What haven't we done for a while?
I don't know.
Because and we've mentioned this before, where you get that, oh, you want mystery, and it gives you like a horror movie.
Yeah.
I mean, we can try something, and whatever they give us, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what they give us for a mystery.
Mystery? Okay. All right, here it goes. I got one called Last Year at Marienbad from 1961.
Okay. What do we got for a synopsis on that?
It is in an old-fashioned luxury hotel. A stranger tries to persuade a married woman to run away with him, but it seems she hardly remembers the affair that they had, or not, last year at Marienbad.
Interesting.
It's French and it is tagged with video games.
Tag.
I don't think that's a correct tag, but but there you go. And we're gonna watch this one on Canopy. Now
Okay.
let's take a brief moment to remind people what Canopy is. It's definitely a newer streaming service, one that I hadn't heard of it, not as used as much as like the big ones. But what is nice is that you register through it through your local library. So if you have like a library card or a library account, that's how you can get it. But what's also nice is the fact that it's free through your library, and they give you like 5 movies a month. And they've got some really interesting choices there. They've got a lot of nice foreign films, some stuff you haven't heard of. They've got a lot of good documentaries on there as well. So if you like documentaries, I think Canopy is a good place for them.
Yeah, it's definitely a great service. So check it out and support your local libraries as much as you
All right.
can right now.
Absolutely. Again, that is Last Year in Marienbad from 1961 on Canopy. So let's see if it's actually about video games.
A 1961 movie about video games, huh?
I'm interested, that's for sure.
That could be interesting. So, all right. Well, that's our show for this week. And until next week.
Don't forget to follow us on Twitter. I'm
Oh
at
yes.
Noah_Saturn.
And I am at AwesomeKM. And you
And
can
we also have an Instagram.
at We Don't Know What to Watch.
Hopefully, we'll try to be more active on social media if we can, but if we're not, that's okay. And thanks for listening, and we hope to see you next time.
Until next time.
Until next time, I'm Jersey John Houston.
And I am Satine, the Satan Satin.
Saltine. All right, bye bye.